Welcome, game dev adventurers, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today we're talking with Alex Gombos about diversity and inclusion in the recruiting world. Oh no.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
We missed the first half of the intro, but you know what? We'll make do. It's okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. In our live magical podcast, we give game developers the chance to hear stories of breaking in from industry experts, as well as directly ask them questions about their areas of expertise in the second half of each episode. As always, I'm your host, Willem Delventhal. I'm the headmaster here at the Indie Game Academy and the Purple Wizard of Games. You may have seen me at events, and I just love talking about games. This is, as I said, a live recording. We host it every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so feel free to come and join us for the next one. There are links to join the Discord down below. But now it's time to talk about diversity and inclusion. I'm really excited to welcome Alex Gombos to the show, who is a talent acquisition leader in the game industry, has worked at a number of companies, including... I've already forgotten PlayStation. I wanted to say EA, but I knew that was wrong. And a number of other big names. It's really cool to have you on the show, Alex. What are you having for lunch here today?
Awesome. Thank you. It is awesome to be on the show. And to answer your question, it is still 9 o'clock my time here in the Pacific side of the US in California. And I decided to just drink a little bit of water this morning and not my normal coffee and tea. We'll see how that goes.
Wow. I discovered today that I was out of coffee grounds. So I'm having
Ooh.
coffee water, the same grounds used from yesterday. And I had some black tea, neither of which have helped. And my brain is still mush.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you.
We'll get through it together, though, Alex. I believe in
Yeah,
us.
exactly.
Well, welcome to the show, Alex. It's really cool to have you on. It's also an
Thank
all-important
you.
topic. Diversity and inclusion is something that we seem to be getting better at, but there's still miles for us to go. I'd love, though, for us to start with, the all-important question here on this particular show, which is, of course, your origin story. So, Alex, tell us where you are and how you got to where you are today.
I love that question. Well, in this exact moment, I have unfortunately been affected by the layoffs.
Woo!
So as many of you are,
Congrats!
are are unfortunately in the same boat, but like we are stronger together.
Huh?
So I was at PlayStation for 6.5 years as most recently as manager of talent acquisition. I was caught up in those big layoffs earlier this year, and I'm looking for my next opportunity. But I think I'll answer that question as far as my origin story, how I got into games. And I'll start from the beginning if you don't mind, because I think,
Absolutely.
looking back, it really was the perfect storm to make me um a, a good candidate for the role that I was hired for initially. So right out of college, I went to work for a online university to be a student advisor, career advisor, student advisor, talking to them about, what classes they should take next, help them graduate, all that fun stuff. And the reason I had decided to work at an online university is because it paid decent, of course. I wanted to, make a living. And I wanted to get my master's. I ended up getting my master's in organizational leadership and development. Wanted something business focused, and I did not want to go into a ton of debt. So at the time, that school was offering their master's program for free. So after I got my master's, and I spent about 3 years there, as many of you probably know, the for-profit university, the way that they did work didn't quite align with my morals and values, and so I was ready to move on. And I fell into an opportunity to recruit. I had never recruited before. I just knew that I loved helping people. And I joined a small agency, like a headhunting agency in San Diego, where I worked as a recruiter for 3.5 years. I learned the ropes, the ins and outs. I worked strictly on commission for the most part. And it was tough. It was really tough. And after those 3.5 years of, building, it was called full desk recruiting, where you have to build your own business. You reach out to, potential clients and companies and, try and get their business to fill their roles. I was like, I would really love the opportunity to work in-house, be a corporate recruiter. And I know people say this in a negative connotation, but I like to say it as drink the Kool-Aid in a way that like I do believe in their morals and values and vision. I love what they do. I might love a product, and I'm excited to work for that company. So it would make me an even better recruiter to get other people excited to work for that company. So I saw a 4-month contract position at PlayStation in San Diego. I knew that Sony was in San Diego, but I did not know that we had a games division, or PlayStation had a games division in San Diego. I was married at the time, so dual income helped with the small risk that I took by taking a 4-month contract. I had never been a contractor before. And it was for someone who was on maternity leave. And this was back in like 2018, beginning of 2018, way pre-pandemic. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take this 4-month contract, and I'm going to make sure that it turns into a 6-month contract, 1-year contract, like whatever it takes that I can stay at PlayStation. And so that's exactly what I did. Um, Taking everything that I learned as a recruiter, networking, meeting people, putting myself out there. I joined all the employee resource groups. I joined Toastmasters. Anytime my manager asked for a volunteer, I raised my hand. I went to different events. Oh, I failed to mention the why this was the perfect recipe. My previous experience was a perfect recipe for this role. It was because it was a university recruiter role. So I had 3 years working for higher ed. I had 3.5 years as a recruiter. And so when I submitted my application and I had reached out to the recruiter at PlayStation saying, hey, I am your almost perfect match. They thankfully agreed. So again, I promised myself that, hopefully they wouldn't be able to get rid of me. And, for 6.5 years, they didn't. And I made my way up from university recruiter over to the game side, associate recruiter, senior recruiter. And then again, as I mentioned, my most recent role before I was no longer with PlayStation was manager of talent acquisition. And I
Wow.
recruited for multiple studios and partnered with multiple studios under the PlayStation umbrella.
That's so cool. There's a lot here. There's a lot here to dissect, Alex.
A lot.
Um, don't worry, it's all good dissections. I love, for instance, so we had a couple episodes ago, we had William Shen on the show, or Will Shen as he prefers, who's a design director at Bethesda for a long time. He recently left Bethesda. And one of the things we asked him was basically how you move up in an organization, specifically in this
Mhm.
case into design leadership. And his answer was essentially what you just said. He made himself as available as he can. He joined groups, he made his face known, and then more importantly, he sort of started doing the work of a lead without ever being a lead, so that by the time he was even being considered for that, they were like, oh yeah, no, he's doing this, he already knows how to do this. And that's
Exactly
a
that. Yep.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you've said. And I think there's something to be said for a reasonable work-life balance, but I think there's also something to be said for like you coming in with gusto, especially in those first one or two jobs where like that's really your opportunity, and you're there to prove yourself, and it's clear that you did that, and that's really cool, and I
Yeah.
think an inspirational for all listeners.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's also, not easy. So kudos to you for even doing it.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and working your way up at a company like PlayStation for 6 years straight is a damn fine accomplishment. So well done.
Thank you. I
Awesome.
try and remember that.
Yes, yes, seriously. The transition from a part-time contract to a full-time contract is something that I did as well at Paradox. And it is a small lesson for everybody in that opportunities don't have to be the exact opportunity. It can be one stepping stone that brings you to something bigger in the
Mhm.
future. So something like a 4-month contract, if you can land it, that is still absolutely worth doing.
Yeah.
Even like you're mentioning that coming with an inherent risk of it not continuing. Um,
Yeah.
in fact, I think, funnily enough, Will Shen also started the exact same way. Only his contract didn't extend.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
I feel like all of us in games have either started with a contract in one way or another.
Yep.
So
Yeah, a little
project-based.
contracting work doesn't hurt too bad anyway. I hate having to
Yeah.
pay for insurance. I don't know about you. That's the biggest.
Yes.
That's
I
the biggest
mean,
pain.
yes, there are definitely some downfalls of contracts not being, permanent employee of a company and all those sweet, sweet benefits, as I like to say.
Yeah.
But it gives you, the experience, a foot in the door, networking opportunities, meeting people. So even if it doesn't get extended or work out this time, I mean, it still looks good for your resume, and you've just worked with a great group of people who can, refer you into somewhere else too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's worth noting how so we on this show and at this school, we often talk about how networking is really, especially in this current time period, how you get jobs. We hear that
Hmm.
time and time again from smart people like you. Um, and so I think something else to call it is just how much time you spent, like, yes, proving you can do higher roles and proving that you're really competent at your job. But I
Hmm.
think even more importantly, you're networking like crazy, you're joining clubs, you're doing Toastmasters, you're making yourself known. And so when somebody internally is thinking about, well, who is the right person to be
Hmm.
the talent acquisition leader, you're probably top of mind by that point. Just because you've,
Because I
put in the face time.
Right, and not only put on in the FaceTime with that team itself, for me, it would be the recruiting team, but, by
Mhm.
joining all these other functions or volunteering at all these other opportunities, I've now made a face and a name for myself cross-departmentally and cross-functionally. And, people that holds a lot of weight. So,
Yeah.
it's not just, oh, Alex works really well with the recruiters, but she works really well or is highly spoken of other parts of HR, other parts of PlayStation. It could be the studios, it could be marketing, whatever it is. So
hmm Yeah, 100%. And I think the last thing to call out from your origin story is the perfect role thing. Absolutely won't always happen. But,
yeah,
I think it is it's really easy when, especially as juniors, there's not that many roles out there, and you keep going like, "Oh, man, I don't think I'm quite the right person for this." But you apply
yeah.
anyway because it's, currently insane in the game industry. But there is a perfect role for you. There will be perfect roles for you, and I think
Mhm.
it's even important to, like, make peace with that. We talk a lot, for instance, about niching yourself and getting really good at specific skills in specific areas. If you're a designer, getting really good at working on specific kinds of games. Um, so I think it's okay. It's good for you to not be quite the right fit for all the roles because eventually you're going to find a couple where, like, you are the perfect person. So I love that you had that
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, I think we have to remember that there is no such thing as perfection in people, places, or things, and so, like,
hmm
it seems like everything went swimmingly for me in this scenario, but there were bumps in the road. At some point I didn't think, but it was, again, that foot in the door for me. And yeah, it's the stepping stone. So, like, whether you feel that you're not the perfect candidate for the role, or the role might not be the exact perfect fit for you or exactly what you're looking for, if it can lead you down that path to what you're looking for, it's always worth considering.
Yeah. I can't agree more with that one. I think it's just about sort of endurance and perseverance.
Hmm.
And especially right now. So
Yeah.
let's start talking about the topic of the day, which is diversity and
Yeah.
inclusion. From the perspective of a recruiter in games. I guess give us the one-on-one for that. What is diversity and inclusion, and why did you offer that as the topic for today?
Yeah, so I know that if you follow me on LinkedIn, you know that I've posted a lot of advice and support when it comes to the candidate side of recruiting, right? So, like, especially now when folks are looking for jobs or have been laid off or whatever, updating your resume, reaching out to recruiters, prepping, for a job interview. So I thought it'd be really cool for this episode to talk about something that I'm passionate about, and don't necessarily always have, at least recently, the opportunity to talk about this. Diversity and inclusion in the hiring practices was something that I did train on at PlayStation for hiring teams, which was really fun. So I wanted to bring this up because identifying and attracting diverse talent is imperative to the makeup of the studio,
Mhm.
but that's just one piece of the puzzle. So I wanted to break down a few pieces that, maybe you might not be in a hiring manager position, or maybe your studio's not hiring right now, but, like, everyone in this room today's juniors, today's seniors will be tomorrow's leaders. And so I wanted to touch upon something that, again, might not be relevant to you today, but is relevant when it comes to thought. And as you progress in your own, career, and as you join different studios, it could, again, this is the indie, podcast. So as you join a small studio, you might not be a manager or director, but you might have hiring influence. And this is going to
Mhm.
be just as important. So the one-on-ones that I put together is don't assume diverse candidates know that you're hiring.
Mm.
Um, it was important for us to actively, seek diversity first and diversity focused events. And I and my colleagues would attend events like Latinas in Tech, Black is Tech, Afro Tech, Grace Hopper, Women in Tech. And so, we made an effort to go out and explore those events and find those diverse candidates who might not be actively looking at our job posts or know where to find, our jobs. So we'd be able to talk to them. And for our most, what I heard, because I have not been in university recruiting for some time, but I think for our 2023 or 2024 cohort, they actually ended up extending internship offers at,
Mm.
some of these events, which I think is fantastic, right? So we're building a diverse group of candidates and employees from the ground up with that internship program.
Mm.
Um, Something else that we used, if your studio is, posting jobs, we use software like Textio. It helped us build inclusive job descriptions by removing harmful language, making sure again that it was inclusive when it comes to gender or age or experience level, depending on what you were hiring for. So there's even software that can help make sure that you are attracting a diverse group of folks, or not just pinpointing a certain type of person.
Mm.
Um, Something else that I mentioned, and also like feel free to jump in. Obviously I have my little bullet points and everything, but if you have any
Of course.
questions or you want me to delve into something deeper. Um, so I mentioned that I did some training and development on diverse hiring practices over at PlayStation, which I was really passionate about. So this is something that I'm bringing in from that. Creating diverse interview panels. So,
Mm.
from the hiring side, from the studio hiring side, we're like, okay, great. We want to attract diverse candidates. Well, what happens when you do and they start interviewing? Creating a diverse interview panel. So that could be gender, ethnicity, experience level. So just not one demographic is present when you are meeting with and interviewing the candidate is important when it comes to evaluation of that candidate. So it really helps to ensure a holistic view of that candidate in regard to the role, their abilities. Now it could be their hard and soft skills and abilities. It can be their current abilities. It can be their future potential. And then something that we like to say is the culture addition or culture add to the team in studio.
Mm.
So we're trying to, I'm trying to move away from culture fit. That kind of, I'll talk about unconscious bias here in a second, but that makes the assumption that you have to fit in, that you have to be just like us. And that's not what we want. We want diversity of thought. We want
Mm.
diversity of creativity. And so we like to say culture add instead of culture fit for that reason exactly. And then when a candidate sees a diverse hiring panel, they see diversity when it comes to, maybe a leader, a manager, they see there might be interviewing with an executive or director that's diverse. They can see themselves in that company. And it ultimately, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, it can foster a sense of belonging on the candidate side. And that's a huge attraction when a candidate is considering a company because again, I know it's a really weird time right now. It feels like the market is really wonky, but don't forget that when you do land an interview, when you are interviewing with a company, that company is interviewing you just as much as you are interviewing the company. You want to make sure that as much as you can during, those interviews that you have, that this could be a company that you can see yourself working at and hopefully work at for a long time and feel that you can fit in.
Mm.
So I mentioned unconscious bias. So for just quick definition, just in case, unconscious bias or implicit biases is a term that describes the association we hold outside of our conscious awareness and control. So like the best way to describe it is this is the tendency that we have as human beings, we all have it, where we tend to favor people who are like us in one way or another, totally unconscious. This can be the color of our skin, where we grew up, where we went to school, whether or not you went to school, if you have the same hobbies, right? We tend to make friends who are similar to us in one way or another. It's more comfortable that way. Totally understandable. But when we kind of break down what unconscious bias is, it can affect in a negative way the hiring process or just kind of negatively in a company aspect, right? So, company wide training on what unconscious bias is and how it can affect the workplace can be very important. So again, like this isn't something that's just in the workplace. This isn't just something that affects me or you. It affects everybody. So it affects
Mhm.
our day-to-day lives, our thinking. So having this training isn't just for hiring managers and hiring teams. It could be employees at all level, right? Because as I said before I started my spiel, is today's juniors and seniors are tomorrow's leaders. So if we can train folks on what it is in the workplace and how to identify and mitigate it, then
Mm.
tomorrow's leaders are going to be that much stronger, and today's leaders will be able to identify it and mitigate it during the hiring process, or even it can pop up during promotions, who we're promoting in the workplace, and employee annual or employee reviews. So it's just overall something that I think that we should be aware of, especially in this industry and just as human beings altogether. And then finally, my last point, right, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we also need to talk about belonging. So, okay,
Mhm.
cool. We're building a studio of diverse candidates. We're attracting, diverse candidates, and we're hiring, the right person regardless. But, it's nice when we can make that effort and include everyone, if you will, from many backgrounds and life experiences in the interview process. Now what? So we've hired someone. What do we do to make sure that we feel that they belong in our organization? So fostering a sense of belonging on a day-to-day basis is really important to retain an employee. Creating and supporting both through, executive leadership and of course financial budget, employee network and resource groups. So a lot of companies have ENET, employee network groups, ERGs, employee resource groups. So I think we're definitely heading in the right direction there. Um, but for those of you who may work at a company who don't have one, ERGs connect like-minded or like similarly demographic people and help create an inclusive workspace by supporting those employees and their allies to provide opportunities to network. Where it is networking again, and develop both personally and professionally. And going back to my origin story, that is something that I did right off the get go. Was okay. What employee network groups or resource groups that I can join that are for me, so that would be, women in games, but that I could also be an ally to. So, that was Black at PlayStation or, I think, what was it? Pride at PlayStation. I basically joined all of them because not only did I want to join the ones that related to me, like Pride at PlayStation or Women at PlayStation, but I wanted to join the other groups um, that I may not be demographically or ethnically, but I could be a supportive ally too, because that's just as
Mhm.
important as well. And then from talent acquisition, like I said, like you found the right talent. Now, how do you retain them and make them feel like they belong? Well, an ERG can help from a recruiting perspective to encourage these underrepresented groups to influence a company's culture, right?
Mhm.
So we're not just one type of thought leader or one type of creativity, if you will.
Mm.
And if you don't have an ERG at your company, when I was at GamesBeat on a panel with Christina Marie Drake, she spoke about this and she put it perfectly. Then start one, right? So how do you start one? Right? So get like-minded people together. Again, folks like you and allies, put a plan together, define the group's objective, identify founding members, that are just as passionate as you are, and reach out to an executive sponsor.
Mm.
I mean, talk about, something that would look wonderful on your resume and a promotion and give you networking opportunities and speaking opportunities. I mean, this is it. Um, and then finally, build a mentorship program for all levels of your employees.
Mm.
I think having um, a well-defined mentor mentee program with goals, outcomes, connecting people from the top and the bottom, again, help with making sure that all employees, and diverse employees, are having the opportunity to learn and grow, and learn these executive functions and communications, so they can grow personally and professionally.
Mm. Wow.
um yeah, I think that's
Amazing. I
it.
mean, so there's times where I'll jump in, but when the guest is giving good stuff, there's no reason to stop you. That was wonderful. So I'm gonna reiterate to make sure that the audience has it. Um, it sounds like there's really three main points. Don't assume diverse conditions. Oh, excuse me. Don't assume diverse candidates know you're hiring. Um,
Hmm.
create diverse interview panels, and then create a
Hmm.
sense of belonging. Are those the three sort of
Hmm.
high level points?
Perfection.
Awesome. Yeah, those are all great. There's once again a lot to kind of pull out of this. I think the first one in particular, I think, is one. Actually, before anything else, you mentioned very early on that if you don't have processes like this in place at your company, even if you're not a leader, you can push for it. And I just want to reiterate that one more time. Absolutely,
Yeah.
in an indie world where typically your entire company size is 12 or less, um,
Yeah.
absolutely you have major authority into how the company works and how the company functions. One of the people that we hired in our last big round of hires was specifically somebody who's like they filled a specific role. I'm trying not to like call out exactly who they are. They filled a specific role. They have a specific job, but part of the reason we hired them was straight up because they kept calling us on stuff. And we were
Yeah.
like, we really like
Nice.
it. We really like how you let us know if you think something is wrong and if we're not approaching things as ethically and high-minded as we could be. So don't underestimate your authority, especially on those small teams. But even at those big companies, there have been multiple times where I have realized after the fact how much authority I actually had in a position.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, don't hesitate. It's a little scary for sure, but don't hesitate to try to bring good stuff to a company if you really believe in it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's really scary. And I think, but taking that leap of faith, again, could be so good and have so many positive outcomes, not just for you, but
Hmm.
for, your studio at large.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you are, an executive at an indie studio, um, maybe take that leap of faith on behalf of your staff, because they might be too, and again, it's not that like they're too afraid to speak up or to speak to you, but there's that kind of, what is it, like the dichotomy between an employee and a manager or director. So it's always
Hmm.
nice when the higher level employee can step in and be like, hey, this is something we need. Who wants to join me? Who wants to step up and in leading this project with my support?
Yeah, I really like that. I think who I try to speak to the most are those indie founders. That's like really what this
Mhm.
community is all about. It's a lot of people, of course, trying to break in, but basically everybody here at least dreams of starting a studio.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I love that is because, as you said earlier, the juniors of today are the seniors of tomorrow, are the leaders of tomorrow. So even if you aren't in a leadership position right this second, um, you I hope for all of you, we hope to get you to that position one day. So, don't forget conversations like this. And then that final reminder, like you don't need to be in a leadership position to enact change and to be a change agent. And it even builds respect. It's a great portfolio piece sometimes, just like you were mentioning, Alex.
Yeah.
Um, and it's the right thing to do. So take that leap of faith. You got it. Don't be scared. We believe in you. Awesome. A lot of the tips that you gave are also just really strong. I love simply don't assume that diverse candidates know you're hiring. It really is like basically no matter where you put a job listing, you are biasing who's going to see it. if you put a job listing up on LinkedIn, of course, only people with LinkedIn and access to your community are going to actually see it. And no matter where you put it, that's the same. So I'd be curious. You gave us a lot of tips for a lot of the other for the other two major points. What are some of your tips for that first one? How do we make sure that our job descriptions are getting in front of a more diverse crowd, especially through an indie lens?
Yeah, that's a great question because with a larger company that has budget, they can afford the LinkedIn job postings. They can potentially afford the Art Station and the Game
Hmm.
Informer, or what is it now? Game. Anyways, doesn't matter. Those big job postings. And you're also assuming that like your candidates know how to again find them by Googling them or researching them. It's something that I recently, well, not recently, over the last handful of years have taken that step back. And that's why I put out so much content on LinkedIn to try and help, is because this is all second nature to me. I'm 10 years into my recruiting profession. I know how to do this because it's my job. And I realize that a lot of people don't because it's not their job. So, again, to your question, in addition to going to different events, potentially setting up portfolio reviews, right? And that's, uh, something that you can potentially partner with the person running the conference on, set up, one-on-one speed interviews at your booth. Um, you can reach out to different universities and colleges and get connected with
Hmm.
their alumni department, because they
Hmm.
can share your job descriptions on their alumni website or whatever website they're using to share jobs. You can attend or reach out to different and local, like, networking groups, like maybe coffee chats or game jams. Just letting people know that you're hiring and sharing that job link and job posting, again, like, just so the word can get out. If we're not looking at completely or like truly professional avenues, then again, just telling people is so big. I'll be honest with you, the whole reason that my network got so big on LinkedIn was because I started consistently posting when I went to the game. Actually, no, I was doing it when I was a university recruiter too. I would consistently post all the jobs that I was hiring for, and then I'd cross
Hmm.
post on some of my socials, tell some of my other friends who were at different studios, or maybe still in school or whatever, and just getting the word out, really helped. So again, you see how big my network is now. Imagine when I post a job, that's the reach that it has, today.
So the main tip I'm hearing is if you want to grow your LinkedIn following, you should post fake job descriptions.
No,
Just kidding.
yeah,
Don't do that. Bad
great
advice.
tip. Quote me on that one, and we'll see what happens.
Very cool though. I think it really is. Because the listeners here are indies, I think it's always there's a thing that I run into a lot when I'm working with indies where they say, well, I can't do that because I don't have the budget, or well, I can't do that because I don't have the time. Those are the two. And by the
Mhm.
way, even if you are indie, we say the exact same thing. It's just that the numbers are bigger. Um, it's really easy to let things slide because you're just overwhelmed, especially on
Mhm.
those indie teams where the stress tends to be high and the budgets tend to be thinner, and the runway tends to be shorter. But things like reaching out to a university is like next to no cost and even potentially saves you time. Maybe that's
Yeah,
how you can find your candidates rather than having to write up a big job description and go through, at this point in time, even for an indie, 100 to 500 applicants. Perhaps you can
yeah.
actually narrow it and still actually expand it at the same time, if that makes sense. Um, so for the second two tips, I'd love to ask the exact same question, not to sound like a broken record here. And it is about time for community questions, I've realized. But for creating a sense of belonging, you mentioned ERGs, which is remind us what that stands for, by the way.
Employee resource group, or sometimes it's called ENET, employee network groups.
Awesome. Yeah. So, employee resource groups. You mentioned as well, like mentorship programs. So, on those indie teams again, where we're talking about like somewhere between 10 and maximum 25 people.
Yeah.
Do you still recommend that same tactic? And if not, what is the sort of modification of those tactics?
Yeah, that's great. I think in that case, good shout out, because again, I was pulling from my, large AAA company perspective. Maybe not necessarily needing or working towards like an ERG or an ENET at that time, because your group
Mhm.
is small enough that you can celebrate those diverse celebrations or holidays or wins, whatever you will, as a small group, as a studio itself, right? So maybe you attend your local Pride event. Maybe you attend an event for MLK Junior Day. Typically, a lot of studios have, here in the States,
Mm.
have that day off. Perhaps there's something that you can do for Spanish Heritage Month, and doing it together, right? So
Mhm.
we're bringing it back to diversity, and we don't have an official group for it, but we're doing it together as a group. And then again, same with like a mentorship program. You don't necessarily need a program, but what you probably need is an onboarding program. Okay, we've
Mm.
just hired someone new. Who's going to be their, like, it could be their day-to-day mentor, their lead, who's going to show them the ropes, who's going to be that person when and especially in a lot of roles where you're fully remote, I'm just sitting by myself in front of my screen, too scared to ask a question, not knowing where to go. Being it, how do I respond to this? So having a buddy, having a mentor, having a partner, having a lead is really integral to a any studio's, any company's onboarding program.
Mm. I love both of those answers. The concept of just going to events that helps even explain or share, the wonder of diversity, is awesome. And maybe that's something you can simply source from your team as well, because they're going to
Yeah,
tell you the kinds of things that they care about and that make them feel comfortable and included.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then an onboarding program was great too. We just doubled the size of our team, and I got to tell you, it was a little bit of a shit show, but we got through it. We managed it. All right, so it is time for community questions. I've held you long enough. We've got Rick here up on the stage to ask our first one. Rick, what do you got for us?
Right. So I'm really loving this as a discussion point, and I'm looking for like your experience in working with diverse companies. I'm curious, what's the best approach you've seen in these affirmatively diverse companies to bridge the inherent cultural gaps? Because like sometimes, I know that I, as a white guy, have worked with teams, and sometimes there seems to be a higher rate of turnover where, just like the black individuals, just they come in and they just tend to fall off projects a whole lot more readily. And I've asked around, and one of the things that I've sussed out is that a lot of times there's an expectation that I expect that you're going to show up and just immediately get to work, and then everybody gets their tasks, and then you leave. But there's an expectation, in other cultures that like, hey, maybe you should get to know each other, communicate a little bit more. So, and where the first step in working together is getting to know each other. And that's just kind of like a cultural disconnect. It comes from backgrounds and the way you were raised and your working experience. Um, and so, like, I'm curious, what's the best approach you've seen where some cultures have certain expectations, other cultures have other expectations? How do they bridge that gap? How do
Mm.
they prepare their staff to understand these things that people aren't going to understand by default?
That's a really good question, Rick. Thank you for asking that. I think something else that I want to bring up in addition to your question is recognizing and understanding that people from different backgrounds may have different struggles or difficulties that you may not know, that I might not know, right? Being a white woman or you being a white man, to get to where they were. And so I think the first thing that's really important to me that I make sure that I do not do is make assumptions. So I don't want to make an assumption or make a stereotype of a certain group because of something that I might not experience. And so again, don't make assumption, ask questions. When I was a manager, something that was important to me was asking how that person felt, right? Because we bring our whole authentic selves to work. And so, how do you feel? How can I support you? Is there anything that we can do as a group to make you feel more welcomed or to bridge that gap? Or do you feel that there is a gap? What is that gap? And how can you help me bridge it? It just goes back for me to not making assumptions and just being the person. And Will, you mentioned it earlier, like um it can be really uncomfortable approaching someone that is either at a higher level than you, like a senior executive director level, and saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable, or I need help, or I think this would be a good idea. So if you can take that initiative and be the person in the uncomfortable situation, and maybe not as a group, maybe one on one, I don't know how that would best work for your studio, your company, the culture, but asking people their thoughts, opinions on, is there a gap? What would they do to bridge that gap, and what could we do to help you make you feel comfortable?
Yeah, what's the best manifestation you've seen of it, of these companies that definitely push for it? Like, how do they really facilitate all of these different people coming together to succeed?
Mm.
By taking initiative and having people from the top support that initiative, right? So I've seen companies bring in the leaders, like executives, presidents, CEOs, founders, bringing in the leaders of for larger companies would be enet groups or ergs, and saying, hey, like, this is something that we're I'm trying to think of an actual example, but like, okay, for example, when uh it's going to get a little political, but let's say like something political happens and it affects a certain demographic of your company, bringing in that demographic and saying, hey, this has nothing to do with work, but this might be affecting you as a human being, and you are our employee and we care about you as a human being. Please help us help you, help us understand how we can support you at work. And then I guess, like, from my perspective, to answer your question of like how I've seen it work, for me, as a recruiter, I'm seeing it from the hiring manager and hiring team's perspective of, again, buying in and supporting, these diverse initiatives.
I think
Awesome.
if I can
Thank
add
you.
to that as a absolutely, thank you, Rick, for a good question. If I can add to that from like an indie perspective, it feels to me like a big part of it, or just a great first step, is just a solid open door policy, and maybe even
Ooh,
an anonymous feedback channel. Like basically make it as easy for people to communicate that they're uncomfortable as possible, so that
yeah,
you hear about it and that people aren't just staying quiet about it.
yeah. I love
Would
the
you agree with that?
anonymous feedback. I think that's important.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, we've got Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Up on stage for the second question. Hannah, would you like to go ahead? Oh, I don't think we can hear you. We
No.
can't. I can read it for you if we need to.
Does this
Oh, there we
Oh.
go. We've got you.
does that oh, I have to push another button. Okay. Anyways.
Problem
So,
solved.
as an autistic person who's going on 9 months of job searching, do you have any tips and insights as a neurodivergent person to find a job?
Yes, that's a good question. So first, I'd like to say, and I hope you're seeing this too, I have seen an influx of companies and studios adding a question or a checkbox or something like that at the end of their application process, saying, hey, if you need reasonable accommodations, please let us know. And I think that's a huge first step from the company side.
Mhm.
That's not your question, of course. But I think when you are applying and finding these jobs, companies that have that, that's like a huge green flag for me. So I hope you are finding companies when you do find jobs. Um, I would don't do it alone. Where you might need help, where what your specific what neurodivergency is. Ask for help, and there's a lot of places that you can do that, and that might lead into finding a mentor. But like Amir Satvat's career, resource website will pair you up with a mentor. And I can guarantee you, we all know that there are many other neurodivergent game developers out there. We make the best games, I think, because of it too. So don't don't think that you have to do this yourself, and it goes back to anyone who might be looking for a job or looking for advice, right? Find someone who can help you, and don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to do this alone. There could be someone who is neurotypical, even like myself, who is like, oh, you're here's a better Google search, or have you thought of looking at, this company and that company. So reach out to folks who are willing to help you, and I would start with Amir's website. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I think you're going to find some wonderful people on there.
Mhm.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. And Hannah, I don't know if you need to hear this, but I'm going to use you as an excuse to say this because I think everybody needs to hear this at least a little bit. One of my favorite episodes of this show ever was with George the Fat Man Sanger, who is like an old hat in audio in the game industry. And his main point was to find the U-shaped hole in the universe, which you are, what your special ticks are.
Yeah.
There is a place that's perfect for you. And that's not
Yeah.
just a role, that's like a life worth living. That's perfect for you.
It's
So
true.
just like, yeah, if you're feeling put down by a specific thing that a quirk of you, don't. It's
Hmm.
actually your strength. It's what makes you better and what makes our games better. It's why diversity matters at all, because we're different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We've probably got time for like one more question, but before then, it's time for the question of the day. So the first person to answer the following question will get 3 House Cup points, and the purpose of this is to reiterate one of the most important things we learned from Alex. So here's the question. You may have guessed it. What are the 3 top tips that Alex gave us to increase diversity and inclusion at our companies? Haley says FEK. I'm not sure what that means. I don't think that is the answer. I'm also going to There we go. Christy was ready, hot on the draw. Yes. Christy says, don't assume diverse candidates know you're hiring. Incorporating DEI training for staff. Create a sense of belonging with ERG groups. Christy, you nailed it. Let us know which house, warrior, ranger, cleric, or rogue you'd like to give those 3 House Cup points to. All right, we're going to get one more question on the stage, and it's from somebody that I already established, but I forget. A lack of coffee. Arkenstoners, there you are. Get up on stage. Let's get you one more question in.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good morning. First of all, thanks, Alex. This has been awesome. Great conversation had by everybody.
Thank you.
So my question specifically is, how do you approach folks in leadership positions who don't necessarily see the importance of DEI? I think that's something we're unfortunately seeing a lot of right now. How do you kind of help them see what benefits, both short-term and long-term, that supporting those initiatives brings to the company?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to go back to my notes here on putting a plan together, right? So if you are dealing or working with someone who may not see the importance of it, I think bringing like-minded people into your conversation, right? So it's not just you that is approaching this. Hold on, I did something wrong here. There we go. That's just you. You're not going at this alone, approaching this executive for support. But you have a team behind you, a band of folks that also believe in this initiative. So then it shows the executive, hey, there's a lot of us in your company that are, feeling this way and think that it's really important. Again, putting a plan together is also going to be very important, and make it as a professional as you can, right? Because if you're approaching this executive, you're like, okay, I want to make sure they don't feel we're wasting their time, that this is valuable, that our insights are valuable to them. It can be a PowerPoint, multiple people can speak, and you can share your deck with them, the day before, so they have a chance to pre-read it. And just list out those goals, those values that are important to you, why it's important that this initiative is identified or discussed or whatever. And then the value that this initiative would have to the company. It can be, again, from a culture ad. It can be from attracting diverse candidates. It can be from a sense of belonging, which in corporate speak is retaining your employees. We all want to retain good employees, and if this is important to those employees, then it should be important to that executive. Now, not everyone is as cool as we are, and so we're going to be up against some different personalities no matter where you work. Don't let that discourage you. If worse comes to worse, I hate to say it, if worse comes to worse and it landed on deaf ears, you now have a wonderful group of people at work that you can meet together in at lunch or outside of work, and kind of organically create something from within, from the bottom up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a great answer.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think building like like-minded allies and or just community for that matter is a force multiplier in so many different ways. We just talked at the very beginning of the episode, we talked about how it helped you get hired into a full-time
Yep.
role. But then also changing culture at your company, increasing DEI at your company, getting the company to work on a specific game you're really hungry to work on. There's a bunch of ways that having a bunch of people who are willing to help you out helps. So yeah, don't hesitate to network within your own companies. Just because you have a job doesn't mean you have to stop networking. Everybody keep networking
Yeah.
forever. That's the main rule.
And one thing too, that I am really strong on this advice for those of us who are active without jobs, who are actively interviewing, and may not have gotten the job. You may, you were the runner up or whatever, but you didn't get the job. Remember that every interview is a networking opportunity. You are submitting your resume, you are putting your best foot forward, you are meeting people during these interviews, and you may not have been chosen as their candidate today. That doesn't mean another role won't open in the future. That also doesn't mean that the person that you met with, whether on the hiring team side or the recruiter side, won't be looking out for you, and potentially a job somewhere else, may pop up. And a lot of us recruiters talk to each other. So if you give your recruiter the consent to share your resume or information, name, not whatever it is, outside of the company, I might be able to share with a recruiter at a different studio who is hiring for someone like you. So just remember, again, there's no such thing as perfection. It is okay if you didn't get that job today. There's something out there for you in the future, and every interview is a networking opportunity to show them how awesome you are.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. 110,000% agree with that one. All right, we have come to the end of our time. We've got two things left to do. Alex, first of all, what is a piece of homework that we can assign the listeners that they can do in the next week or so? It'll take them about an hour to practice some of what we talked about here today.
Oh, okay. So the homework assignment that I came up with was learning about the different types of unconscious biases, starting to try and identify them within your own thoughts, mind, and action, and learning from it. So, something else that I would love to challenge you to do, in addition to understanding your, implicit biases and identifying them and starting to change them, because man, it's tough. Again, we're born this way. Like, this is how our brains work. Expanding your network with people who may not be like you. They may not look like you. They may not come from the same background as you. They may not be at the same level as you. And that could be you networking with a junior, or someone networking with a senior or an executive. Just expanding your network so that when you take a look, at who you are networking, we can use LinkedIn as an example. When you scroll through your LinkedIn connections, they might not all look like you, or come from the same school or the same background. Again, that's where we can put in the work to create diversity from the ground up, because again, whether you're a leader today or tomorrow, like, this is such important work to do just to change the industry as a whole.
I love that.
Oh
That's
yes,
awesome.
Samir's website. Thank you.
100%. So it sounds like, let me reiterate to make sure I've got it. It sounds like we want them to do some research into the different types of unconscious biases. We want them to write a bit about how they may have been personally affected by them, and we want them to understand how they can learn and grow out of those biases. Is that a good
Absolutely.
summary?
Yep. Yeah.
And then connect with those who are potentially outside of your traditional network, outside of your traditional groups. So we love to make people do this publicly, as long as you're comfortable. We're not going to force you. But if you do this homework, we would love to see you post it to LinkedIn. You can tag the Indie Game Academy, and you can tag Alex, Alex Gombos, and we will all be excited for you. And we'll just be appreciative that you did the homework. So write a little bit about unconscious bias, how it may have affected you, how you can grow, and then get you some new connections that are outside of your typical group. We'd love to see that happen on LinkedIn. Okay, so that is the end of the show. Alex, before we say goodbye, is there anything that you'd like to promo here, or any final words of wisdom you'd like to give?
Oh gosh. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, my name. So follow me if you don't already. I put out a lot of good content, at least I think so. So shameless self plug there. And
Good,
then
good,
I
good.
guess the last thing that I will leave everyone with, which is kind of the last thing that I've been leaving folks with lately, it's because I'm in that position too, is stay strong, and whatever that means for you. I am also, still unemployed from the layoff, and I'm still looking for my next opportunity. But when you think about, who is most important, and some of you have families and kids and stuff like that, but if you are not waking up and reminding yourself that you are awesome, that you are important, and that, yesterday, can I cuss a little bit? Just one word.
A little bit. Yes.
Yesterday may have been shit, but there's always today and tomorrow. Just again, it's no negative positivity or whatever that is. Sometimes it's okay to just feel crappy. But you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. That's how you can take care of others. So, yeah, I hope you can all look at, yourself in the mirror and point to yourself and be like, you're awesome. You're number one. And we're going to keep this going.
I love that. Yeah, every single one of you has something special about you. What a fantastic final message. You don't have to be the best at anything. Just be the best
Yeah.
at being you. Find
Yep.
that U-shaped hole in the universe. Alex, what a
Love that.
fantastic final message. Absolutely. What a great episode. Thank you for being here and answering these questions, and teaching us a little about DEI and more.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so awesome chatting with you. And thank you, everyone, for attending and for your awesome questions. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Heck yeah. See you all next week, everybody. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, we ask that you share it along to one other person who could learn from Alex. Goodbye, y'all.